5 sinister school lockdown stories revealed, haunted moments that will terrify you forever. Sarah stepped through the peeling doors of Jefferson High, her heart pounding. This was supposed to be a routine lockdown drill, but an electric tension crackled in the air. Memories swept over her like a chilling fog, laughter echoing through these very halls, friendships forged, lessons learned. Jefferson had been a sanctuary in the unsettling economy of their Midwestern town, but now, it felt haunted. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that seemed to breathe as she walked, an unsettling rhythm whispering secrets. As the principal's voice crackled over the intercom, a nagging dread stirred within her. Movement in the corners of her vision flickered a dark shiver. Leaving the classroom door ajar, she caught snippets of conversation outside. Parents clustered near the chain-link fence, their faces lined with worry, eyes wide and staring. Whispers of strange happenings curled through her mind like smoke, kids hearing echoes of something lost, something unsettling haunting the very fabric of their school. The drill began, the voices dimming, but a low murmur vibrated under the surface. She shook it off. Overactive imagination, she told herself. Yet, with each passing moment, anxiety twisted tighter. Students huddled together, glancing toward the windows, their faces pale. Sarah's heart raced as she sensed it too, the tension that permeated the air like a storm about to break. She heard it, then the fire alarm screaming its shrill warning, cutting through the echoes of unease, thrusting the school into chaos. "Stay calm," she shouted, but her voice cracked, mixing with the panicked cries of her students. The whispers grew louder now, a cacophony that seemed to seep from the walls. What was happening? She glanced around, seeking comfort and finding none. Desperation nudged her toward Mrs. Dawson, an older teacher lingering in the corner with an unsettling calm. Sarah approached, her voice barely above a whisper. "What's going on?" "The kids, they're scared. They keep talking about something they heard, something haunting." Mrs. Dawson's smile felt off, something twisted flickering in her eyes. "It's just stories, dear. Just stories, not just stories." Panic bubbled in Sarah's throat. Desperate to find answers, she later dove into old school records buried in forgotten cabinets. She discovered chilling references to dark rituals tied to the town's folklore, something called the desolation cycle. Fear gripped her as she understood these spirits demanded sacrifice in lean times. As she slammed shut the dusty folder, the lights flickered violently, plunging her classroom into eerie darkness. Heart racing, she grabbed her phone, but the screen went black. A shadowy figure loomed before her, faceless and cold. The stories flooded back. It didn't just haunt the school, it thrived here. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation clawed at Sarah as she sprinted down the hall, heart pounding in her ears, the students' frantic whispers melding with the shadows closing in around her. She confronted her colleagues, but confusion hung like a thick fog, their glances darting away, muffled conversations rising just above a whisper. Who could she trust? The power flickered once more, and terror coursed through her veins. In that moment, she saw him, the grinning man from local legends, lurking just beyond their reach, embodying their darkest fears. The final echoes crescendoed, and just as the world shifted, Sarah stood frozen, breathless, terrified. Time was running out, and as the shadows loomed ever closer, she realized the real danger wasn't just from outside, it was inside. Would she uncover the town's secrets before it consumed them all? The crash echoed ominously as the power cut out entirely, leaving them enveloped in suffocating silence. The silence swallowed Sarah whole, the pitch dark a living thing, pressing in around her. Heart thumping against her ribcage, she felt her breath quicken, panic clawing at her throat. Shadows loomed like monsters at the edge of her vision. She had to move. With trembling hands, she fumbled along the wall's textured surface, searching for the door handle. Memories flashed, the comforting laughter of students, morning announcements crackling over the intercom, the aroma of cafeteria lunches. But all of that now felt far away, twisted into something grotesque. Footsteps echoed from down the hall, hesitant and slow. Sarah spun around, straining to see. "Is anyone there?" she called, her voice barely breaking through the darkness. A creeping unease settled around her, smothering her words. No answer came, just the distant whispering sound that seemed to mock her. The shadows shifted, and she felt an undeniable presence, like ice sliding down her spine. "Sarah," a voice hissed, familiar yet twisted, echoing through the air like a chant. It sent shivers racing through her limbs. She recalled Mrs. Dawson, her unsettling smile. "Is she involved?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed the door open just enough to slip through. A small group of students huddled in the dim light of the hallway, their faces ghostly pale. Eleanor, a normally boisterous junior, trembled visibly, staring wide-eyed at something she couldn't see. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, urgency flaring in her voice. "Something is out there," whispered Eleanor, voice trembling. It's watching us." Behind them, a sudden crash echoed, followed by frantic footsteps. A group of teachers stumbled into view, their faces contorted in fear. "Stay back!" shouted Mr. Harris, the gym coach, as he pointed into the darkness. "There's something in here." "What is it?" Sarah demanded, but the panic-filled murmurs ignored her. An insistent scratching sound began to scrape along the walls, pulling every gaze toward the source. "It's real," one of the teachers moaned. "We have to leave." Before anyone could act, a figure emerged from the shadows, grotesquely outlined against the flecks of dim light. It was a twisted mockery of a former student, limbs elongated and wild, eyes hollow. It moved with unnatural speed, swooping towards them. The collective gasp of horror echoed, and chaos erupted as students and teachers scrambled to escape. "Run!" Sarah screamed, pushing forward, her heart clenching in terror. She grabbed a handful of students, rallying them away from the figure now looming closer, its blank stare sending waves of cold dread coursing through the group. "Where do we go?" yelled Eleanor, fear cracking her voice. "Back to the office." Sarah yelled back, darting down the hallway, her pulse racing. They raced into the main office, the familiarity now warped. Papers littered the floor, the remnants of yet another lockdown. Shadows flickered across the walls, making them seem alive. Panic tightened like a vice as they slammed the door shut. Sarah leaned against it, breathless, scanning the room. There was no way out except through the main entrance, but what waited beyond? "What's happening?" one of the teachers rasped, desperation filling the air like smoke. "Why is this happening?" The scratching echoed again, more frenzied, as if something urged to break through. It felt like time was collapsing in on them, like the very walls of Jefferson High were closing in. And then a chilling realization soaked into her, a connection, a pattern woven through the town's history. "They need a sacrifice," Sarah breathed, the words like shards of glass slicing through the tension. "It's not just a story." Then a loud bang reverberated behind the door, splintering the air. They all exchanged horrified glances, the realization glaring down upon them like an unwelcome truth. They could only wait for the shadows to close in, but who or what would claim their lives tonight? The door shuddered violently, reverberating through the cramped office. The force of it rattled their bones and sent hearts racing faster. Sarah steadied herself, clutching the edge of a desk, its surface splintered and worn. "We can't stay here," she gasped, adrenaline spiking through her veins. "Where can we go?" one of the teachers whimpered, eyes wide and glistening with panic. "It's dark out there. What if it finds us? Then we'll have to take our chances," Sarah shouted, the words almost catching in her throat. The scratching grew louder, more furious, an insistent clawing done by something stuck between madness and hunger. It ignited a primal urge to flee. Eleanor gripped Sarah's arm tightly. What if it already knows we're here? The shadows on the walls took on shapes that twisted her stomach. Every flicker of light seemed to dance to an unseen score of horror, foretelling doom. We can't wait for it to get in. Sarah yelled, her voice rising in desperation. We have to go now. With a ragged breath, she pushed open the door a crack, peering through the narrowing slit. The hallway seemed endless and foreboding. Only the dim, flickering emergency lights illuminated the chaos beyond discarded backpacks, a frenzied stampede of fear, and more shadows that darted in and out of sight. Go! Bellowed Mr. Harris, pushing past her, his hands raised like shields. On 3. But the count never came. The door burst open with brutal force, cracking against the wall. The figure lunged inside, a visceral sound tearing at the silence. It was there, the twisted body of a former classmate, eyes sunken, face twisted in eternal agony. It didn't look human anymore, it was a hollow shell of horror. Screams erupted as they flooded from the room. Teachers and students scrambled, a flurry of limbs and terror. Sarah felt the cold breath of malevolence on her neck as she dove for the hallway. She had to lead them to safety. The light seemed to dim behind her, swallowed by the creature's insatiable hunger. Turn left. Sarah shouted over the chaos, directing everyone toward the science lab. The echoes of their footfalls mingled with the frenzied scratching, and she could feel it. The creature was behind them, eager, relentless. As they rounded the corner, Eleanor stumbled, falling to her knees. Help! She cried, body trembling with fear. Without thinking, Sarah's heart ached for her friend. Grab her! Another student yelled, and 2 classmates dove to collect Eleanor, dragging her to her feet just as a shadow loomed at the edge of the hallway. For a moment they froze, caught between fear and hope. The beast lurked there, silent for just a heartbeat. Its hollow eyes locked onto them, and time itself felt suspended. Then it lunged. Run! Sarah screamed again, shoving past, fighting the tide of terror pooling in her own heart. They barreled into the science lab, slamming the door behind them. Breathless and panting, they huddled by the windows, peering out into the darkness. Outside, the shadows writhing under the flickering streetlights felt alive, pressing against the glass, a reminder of what lurked just out of sight. What do we do now? Eleanor choked out, panic clawing at her voice again. Sarah couldn't find an answer. The stories whispered in the hallways echoed in her mind. We need to figure out what it wants. What happened with the last sacrifice? Suddenly, the door rattled violently again, the sound like thunder in the small room. Something began to claw at the wood, and all hope began to feel like a fading memory. The scratching was now an insistent heartbeat against their battered minds. Someone has to face it. Mr. Harris yelled, voice barely audible over the chaos as he backed against the shelves, fear etched in every line of his face. There has to be a way to stop this, or we'll all be trapped. As they clung to each other, the darkness closed in like a hungry creature, waiting for one of them to falter. But who would be brave enough to confront the horror that had come home to Jefferson High? What sacrifices could save them now? The tension swelled like a storm waiting to break, leaving them caught in a terrifying moment of choice. And somewhere in the shadows, a whisper echoed, sending chills down their spines. There's no escape. The door thudded again, a dull, throbbing reminder that time was running out. Everything else faded but the sound, scratching, desperate and furious, slapping against the barrier they had erected in a futile attempt at safety. It didn't feel safe. It felt like a death sentence ticking down. Eleanor was shaking, her breath quick and shallow. What if it gets in? Her voice trembled, like leaves in a storm. Sarah grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to meet her gaze. We can't think like that. We have to plan. But the words fell flat, each syllable swallowed by fear's grip. Mr. Harris rummaged through science equipment, panic lining his face as he pulled out a beaker of something bubbling suspiciously. Maybe I can use this to block the door. If it gets in, he stumbled over the rest of his thought. No. Sarah cut him off, shaking her head fiercely. We need to distract it, draw it away. I'll do it, another voice broke through, seemingly calm amid chaos. It was Jake, a senior known for his reckless bravado. He stepped forward, chest puffed as confidence washed over him like a mask. I'll lead it away. You guys lock the door. What? Eleanor gasped, horror striking her features. No. You can't. But Jake shrugged, determination sparking his blue eyes. It's better than waiting here to die. I'll be quick. Jake, don't. Sarah pleaded, but he was already reaching for the door handle. He hesitated. For that split second, uncertainty flashed in his expression. Then he nodded, gritted his teeth, and yanked the door open. The hallway was a bloody graveyard of memories. The flickering lights above cast erratic shadows, and the scratching noise intensified, echoing like nails on a chalkboard. Hey! Jake shouted into the darkness, voice steady despite the trembling air. Over here. He gestured wildly, hoping to lure the beast out. As he backed away, the shadows shifted, and a low growl rose from behind the corner, thick and rancid. The ghastly figure burst into sight, limbs contorted at unnatural angles, jaw unhinged like a broken puppet. Run! Sarah screamed as Jake's courage turned to terror in an instant. He stumbled, eyes wide with horror as the creature lunged. She slammed the door shut, the sound ricocheting through the lab. A visceral impact sent vibrations through the walls as they locked it tight, whimpers of disbelief filling the air. Did we lose him? Elliot, a quiet student, whispered, his face drained of color. No, Sarah said, shaking her head, dread creeping back in. They all felt it, the rush of hair on their arms rising. The scratching narrowed, becoming deliberate, like a countdown. They were not safe yet. Outside, the howls grew louder, suffused with torment. It wasn't just a creature, it was pain, it was despair. What now? Eleanor whimpered, eyes darting toward the windows where darkness pooled like an ink spill. Each glance sent her heart racing, a wild drum in her chest. We need to barricade more. Find anything heavy. Mr. Harris barked, snapping into action. Just then, a frantic banging erupted on the door, out of sync with the scratching. It wasn't the creature. Let me in. Please. The voice was familiar, a plea laced with terror. Is that Sam? Sarah gasped, recognizing their classmate's voice raw with fear. Moments stretched, overlapping panic and necessity. Should they let him? What if it was a trap? But could they really abandon someone to that horror? Open it. For God's sake. Sam cried again, the urgency hitting them all like a tidal wave. Sarah's heart raced as she stepped closer to the door, hesitation battling courage. To save him or to condemn them all? It was at that moment, the scratching ceased. An eerie silence enveloped the room, a stillness that pressed against her ears. Everyone held their breath, waiting for a sign, unsure of what would come next. Then came a whispered warning, ghostly and torn. It knows you're in there. Each heartbeat echoed louder than before, a countdown to an unraveling fate. What waited beyond that door? Her hand hovered over the lock, fear and dread swirling inside as shadows crept closer, looking for an opening. Waiting to devour the doorframe trembled again, a cruel promise of either salvation or doom. What would Sarah choose? The moment hung in the air, heavy with tension. Sarah's hand trembled inches from the lock. Her breathing quickened, each inhale like shards of ice scraping her throat. Silence stretched, too fragile to hold the weight of their fear. Please, just let me in. Sam's voice, so close and yet so distant, rattled her resolve. Sarah, listen, Mr. Harris urged, his voice hoarse. The adults in the room clung to logic, a desperate grasp in a world of chaos. We can't open this door. We can't. I can't just leave him out there. Think about Jake. Eleanor whimpered, tears glistening in her wide eyes. Our friend just went out there. We can't let any more of them in. Sarah felt the prickle of her skin turning cold as she stepped back from the door. The plea in Sam's voice wrestled with her instinct for survival. She gripped the edge of a table, nails digging into the wood for strength. The scratching resumed, sharper, angrier, like a butcher's knife against a whetstone. She swallowed hard. What do we do? Then the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. Panic erupted like a volcano, their voices rising in chaos, a jumbled chorus of fear. The emergency lights kicked in a dim red glow, casting eerie shadows around the small lab. The silhouette of the door became a portal to their doom, an entry for whatever lurked outside. Move it! Mr. Harris yelled, shoving desks and chairs against the door, clumsily barricading the impending horror. They all scrambled, fear fueling their frantic movements. Behind them, a low growl reverberated through the floor like an earthquake of dread. The creature was still out there, lurking, waiting. We can't let him in. Eleanor cried, clutching Sarah's arm. What if he's changed? Icy fingers of doubt curled around Sarah's heart. It was a sickening mental image, one that froze her blood. What if Sam was no longer Sam? What if he brought them all doom instead of salvation? Another thud against the door broke her reverie. Let me in. I'm still me. The panic soared, fingertips tingling with terror. The darkness felt suffocating now, pressing against them like a vice. With a shuddering breath, Sarah steeled herself. We need to hold on, until we know. Then came a loud crash from down the hall. Another scream ripped through the air, shrill and echoing like a ghost from the past. They flinched collectively at the sound, eyes darting towards the door, filled with an all-consuming horror. Stay close! Mr. Harris shouted, as he clutched a makeshift weapon, a glass beaker. The group huddled together in the corner, muscles coiled, ready for the worst. The scratching grew more furious, the creature agitated by the defense they put up. A low chuckle emerged, hideous and mocking, from somewhere in the shadows. The floor trembled again, vibrating with anger. What if it gets in? Eleanor whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. It can't, Sarah whispered back, yet uncertainty laced every syllable. Forces beyond their control were rapidly closing in. She could almost feel the tendrils of despair creeping beneath their legs, wrapping around their ankles like worms, eager to pull them down into darkness. As another crash sounded from beyond the door, it shook on its hinges. Then an awful, guttural roar erupted just inches from where they stood. Fear bloomed in the room, and Sarah's heart thudded wildly against her ribcage. They were trapped, and whatever was out there wanted in her stomach twisted with horror. Maybe if we let him in, she started to think. But before she could finish the thought, a figure broke through the darkness just beyond the doorframe. The shadows seemed to twist and morph around it, an abomination cloaked in misery and despair. With one final strike, the creature burst free, its maw wide open, ready to feast. Sarah's instincts kicked in as the creature lunged. Run! She screamed. The nightmarish growl chased them as they made for the nearest exit. What awaited them outside, they hadn't the slightest idea, but in that moment, the darkness held more promise than what was behind them. They raced past the broken door, leaving the evidence of their morality behind, dashing forward into the unknown. What lay beyond these walls? Was it madness, salvation, or an even greater horror? The only certainty was a lingering dread that something worse awaited them. The hallway twisted into a nightmare, shadows writhing and merging like the breath of the creature behind them. Sarah's heart thundered in her ears as she led the group forward, her eyes wide, scanning the darkness ahead. Keep running! She shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins like wildfire. The dim emergency lights cast unsettling flickers on the walls, each pulse a reminder of their impending fate. Eleanor stumbled beside her, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked cheeks. "What if it finds us?" she gasped, her voice barely a whisper but laced with terror. "Just focus," Sarah urged, squeezing her hand. "We need to find somewhere safe." Through the chaos and noise, they darted past empty classrooms. The silence of these rooms felt suffocating, each closed door a reminder of the horrors beginning to seep into their reality. A chill coiled around Sarah's spine, she could feel eyes watching from the shadows waiting. They reached the end of the hallway, where a set of double doors led to the main auditorium. Sam's frantic shouting echoed in her mind, but the memory of the creature left her no choice. "We can't go in there," she said abruptly, raising a shaking hand, noting the faint luminescence seeping through cracks from within the room. Mr. Harris caught up to her, panting and wild-eyed. "We have no choice. It's either there or out in the open." Before Sarah could respond, a loud, monstrous roar erupted behind them. The creature was gaining. Gripped by a surge of panic, she pushed through the doors, and everyone tumbled in after her. Inside, a stifling silence enveloped them, but the breathless fear quickly morphed into a dread so profound it wrapped around their throats. Rows of empty seats loomed like judges, their rigid forms barely visible in the dim light. Mr. Harris moved to the stage, eyes scanning the wider expanse. "We need a barricade," he said, his voice clipped. "Something to block the entrance." "Anything," Sarah echoed, looking back towards the doors. Shadows twitched at the edges of her vision, the echo of growls mixing with her own hasty breaths. They rushed toward the heavy stage curtains. With quick urgency, Eleanor and Sarah heaved metal stands, stacking them against the doors. Just as they finished, a deafening crash thundered from behind, the wood splintering sharply as the creature breached the hallway. "Get away from the door!" Mr. Harris shouted, his beaker raised like a pitiful weapon. They backed away, hearts trembling, as the growl transformed into a nightmare of snarls. Toilet paper ribbons floating in the air twisted ominously, echoing a scene from a horror film they never wished to live. But then, a glimmer reflected in the red emergency light, something glinting off the stage near the back wall. Sarah squinted, trying to make sense of it, and gasped when she recognized an axe, a relic from the school's theatrical prop collection. "Over there." She pointed, her breath hitching. "We need to get that." "Are you insane?" Mr. Harris barked. "We're not splitting up. Eleanor and I can grab it. You and you too, just stay back." Before the argument escalated, Sarah and Eleanor took off, sprinting toward the stage. The growling grew louder, punctuated by the shrieks of wood as the creature began to push through the barricade. They reached the axe, Ellie grabbing it just as the first crack ripped through the barriers. "I got it." The doors shook, splintering, raw fear swelling in the pit of Sarah's stomach. "Hurry." At that moment, the doors flew open, revealing the creature, once shrouded in shadows, now fully emerged, its eyes burning bright, teeth glistening with a menacing hunger. They froze. Heartbeats drumming in unison, and then the decision slammed into Sarah all at once: fight or flight. "Use it!" she yelled, panic igniting her commands as she reached for Eleanor, urging her to react. Just then, a sound reverberated, a desperate cry that pierced the air, traveling like a warning through the chaos. The haunting voice of someone they once knew, sounding distant yet clear, echoed in the auditorium. "Help me please." That cry sent icy tendrils of dread coursing through Sarah. Now they faced more than just the creature, they faced the possibility of leaving one of their own behind. What would they do? The next horror was just moments away, and they weren't alone anymore. The creature loomed before them, a grotesque figure draped in shadow and malice. Its glowing eyes seemed to swallow the afflicted darkness, narrowing on Sarah and Eleanor, who stood transfixed. The growls rolled from deep within its throat, vibrating through the auditorium like a low tremor, turning their insides to ice. "Ellie, Focus! Sarah shouted, grip tightening on her friend's arm, pulling her back from the edge of panic. We have to be ready. The desperate cry echoed again, this time a chilling reminder of the cost of their inaction. It was Sam's voice, raw and pleading, piercing through the haze of terror that enveloped them. Help me. What if it's a trap? Eleanor gasped, eyes wide with horror. It doesn't matter. We can't leave him. Sarah replied, determination igniting a flicker of hope. As the creature shifted, its sharp claws scraping against the floor, the noise was sharp against the silence. Bloodied and wild, it was almost too monstrous to comprehend. It lunged with a speed that left no room for doubt, their time was running out. Get back! Mr. Harris shouted, brandishing the remains of an old chair leg. Distract it. I'll cover you. Go! Sarah urged. She knew there was no choice, it was now or never. The axe felt heavy in Eleanor's grip as they edged toward the creature, ready to fight for their lives. A shudder coursed through Sarah, every instinct screaming to flee. But Sam's voice acted as a tether, refusing to release her. With a sudden surge of bravery, she yelled, "Hey! Over here!" and dashed toward the side of the stage, heart racing, adrenaline pumping. The creature whipped its head around, eyes narrowing, jaws snapping as Sarah led it away. Eleanor followed closely, holding the axe defensively. They reached the thick curtains, waiting for the creature to veer off target. "Ellie, on my count!" Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the tremors of fear rippling through her. 1, 2, 3. Eleanor swung the axe, hitting the closest curtain strap. It tore free, and chaos erupted as the fabric billowed down, wrapping around the creature. The nails of its claws snagged into the heavy material as it struggled to comprehend its entrapment. "Now!" Sarah shouted, pushing through the fear. She lunged back at the barricade, snatching up the beaker Mr. Harris had dropped. "We have to keep it contained." But the monster was relentless. With a growl that echoed like a distant thunderstorm, it wrenched itself free, its claws slicing through the curtain as if it were made of paper. In that terrifying moment, the realization settled in, they might not survive this. "Sam!" Sarah yelled, desperate to draw its attention back. "We're coming. Just hold on." The sound of splintering wood filled the auditorium as the creature broke through the last barrier, eyes glinting with fury as it charged forward. Mr. Harris stood paralyzed but defending, gripping the chair leg tight, a human shield against the terrible abyss. Then they saw it, a bright flash at the far end of the auditorium, something illuminated that had not been there before. Something alive. A cluster of flickering lights, seemingly out of place in this nightmare. "What is that?" Eleanor whispered, fear and confusion mingling in her voice. "It might be a way out," Sarah offered, a spark of hope igniting in her chest. "We could run." As if sensing the change in will, the creature screamed, a terrifying howl that echoed through the hall. The sound clawed at their minds, twisting their hearts, urging them to turn back. But the lights beckoned like a lighthouse through a storm. They darted, weaving past fallen debris, adrenaline pulling them toward the glow. But as they neared the lights, a chilling realization washed over them. Each flickering orb seemed to pulse with a consciousness of its own, revealing figures trapped within them. Faces of their classmates, eyes wide and silent, mouths gaping in silent screams. "Sarah, what do we do?" Eleanor stammered, horror painting her features pale. Time stood still as they stared into the pulsating lights, drawn in yet terrified. The creature howled again, its breath hot on their necks, a reminder of what awaited them if they faltered. Did they save Sam, risk everything for those lost souls, or flee into the darkness, leaving the past behind? The decision loomed before them like a chasm of despair. Yet they had to act fast before the creature made its choice for them. What would rise from the depths of their fear? The stakes had never been higher, and time slipped away like grains of sand. What awaited them at the heart of that dreadful light? They couldn't turn back, not now. Eleanor's heart raced as she clutched the axe tighter, instinct urging her to protect Sarah, and the screaming figures trapped behind the pulsating lights burned into her mind. "We can't just leave them," she cried, panic bubbling to the surface. "Eleanor, listen." Sarah's voice rose above the dreadful howling of the creature. Desperation etched on her face, she continued, "We have to lure it away first. We won't save anyone if we're dead." The creature lunged again, its claws wreaking havoc on the world around them, carving deep gashes into the floor. The utter chaos felt like a thunderstorm, vibrating the very bones of their bodies. Glancing back, Eleanor saw the horror carefully tucked beneath the monster's chaotic movements, as it moved with feral grace. "You're right," she conceded, though her face paled further. "But how?" The twinkling lights blinked, almost taunting them. Each flicker seemed to whisper, urging them to come closer, daring them to reach out and touch the faces frozen inside. The thought made Eleanor's stomach twist, each breath now a battle against the encroaching dread. "Okay," Sarah breathed in sharp determination. "We use the lights. You make noise, I'll run. Maybe it'll think you're the priority." "Are you crazy?" Eleanor shouted, her mind racing 1,000 dangerous paths. "It will. I don't care. Just trust me." Sarah's gaze pierced Eleanor's, forcing her to see the bravery that flickered within her friend. "I want to let it take you too." Before Eleanor could protest further, Sarah dashed forward, toward the cluster of lights, trailing her fingers through the air. The iridescent glow rushed at her fingertips, and for a moment, Eleanor thought she heard a faint echo of their classmates' despair weave through the luminescence. With renewed resolve, she drew in a sharp breath. "Hey! Over here!" Eleanor shouted, her voice shaky but loud enough to shatter the air around them. The creature whipped its head toward her, its eyes narrowing with predatory focus while Sarah continued to inch closer to the lights. "Don't do this!" Eleanor screamed, swinging the axe at a nearby piece of debris, sending it crashing to the ground. The sound echoed like a gunshot, startling the creature. It hesitated, confused, momentarily torn between them and the flickering glow. "Now!" Sarah shouted, a surge of fierce energy driving her toward the lights. The instant Sarah began to reach them, the lights glowed fiercely, illuminating the figures within those desperate faces pressed against the encasement. Each one mirrored the terror Eleanor felt, and for a moment, panic and rage woven into fear struck her. She was ready to face the creature, even as every cell in her body screamed for escape, but the monster lunged, fierce and relentless, snapping at Sarah. Just as its deadly jaws closed in, Sarah dove, narrowly escaping the creature's onslaught as she landed within the shimmering light. Eleanor held her breath, uncertainty striking her like a punch. "Sarah!" Her voice broke against the din of chaos, eyes wide as she watched Sarah vanish into the radiance. Then came a chilling silence, a heavy pause that clouded the air. The creature turned its fury on Eleanor, nostrils flaring, sucked deeper into the tumult of its hunger. "This isn't some game," Eleanor spat defiantly, raising the axe. "You want her? You'll have to go through me first." The creature reared back, eyes glowing like coals, its slick breath filling the space with a stench that curled Eleanor's stomach. It charged forward, an unstoppable force of dark intention, and as adrenaline gripped her, she knew she was racing against time. But which way would her decision swing? As she hefted the axe, the lights flickered again and her resolve began to crack. Were her classmates truly trapped there, forever lost, or was it a sinister illusion? She glanced back at where Sarah had fallen, her heart pounding. In that critical moment, Eleanor realized whatever spark of hope she might hold was slipping away. The creature roared, drowning out her thoughts, and a desperate decision clawed at her mind. Would she fight, or flee, risk everything, and perhaps find a way to save them all? And in that moment of truth, shadows danced, swirling in the deep recesses of horror, blending reality with nightmares. What truly lay in the heart of that dreadful light? The answer loomed, waiting for Eleanor to either push forward or retreat into silence. Time was no longer on their side and the clock was counting down to something unfathomably dark. Eleanor's grip on the axe tightened. The creature had halted, eyes fixing on her with a malevolence that sent shivers down her spine. Its breath, a foul mist, clouded the air between them. Each heartbeat echoed like a war drum, reminding her that too many lives were at stake. "Focus!" she screamed, shaking off the creeping dread. Yet, her mind flickered to the faces behind the shimmering light, those pale, desperate eyes. She felt a horrifying pull, as if their silent screams were wrapping around her like chains. With a heavy heart, she couldn't let fear paralyze her. The creature snarled, a sound like grinding metal. It lunged again, and instinct took over. Eleanor pivoted, swinging the axe with every ounce of strength she had. The blade connected with the dry wood of a nearby bench, splintering it to pieces. The sound reverberated, filling the hollow room. "Come on!" she shouted, daring the creature to take her bait. Its attention shifted, drawn away from the light for the briefest of moments. It stalked toward Eleanor, claws scraping against the floor like nails on a chalkboard. The flickering lights behind her pulsed in rhythm with her escalating fear. Sarah was lost in there, trapped in that glow of hope and pain, and Eleanor couldn't just let it consume her friend. She had to do something. But what? The creature was closing in now, every step purposeful, deliberate. Eleanor's eyes darted toward the pulsing light, desperate to understand its allure. What if they weren't trapped? What if, instead, they were transformed? Poisoned by the brilliant but darkening light of whatever power it held. "Leave her alone!" she shrieked, charging forward as the monster hesitated, surprised by her sudden boldness. She swung the axe again, aiming for anything it might find dangerous. The blade grazed its thick arm, causing a hiss of pain that echoed like a wailing child in an empty hall. Where adrenaline filled her veins like fire, pain surged into the creature like a ravenous predator. It turned, eyes wide with shock, but Eleanor felt the shift in the air. There was a moment, an instant, when doubt crept back in. But she couldn't second-guess herself now. The stakes were too high. Behind her, the lights flickered more violently. Sarah's voice echoed, soft and desperate, "Eleanor." A chill raced through her at the sound. Would Sarah's sacrifice go in vain? Eleanor fainted left, a calculated distraction. The creature lunged, snapping its jaws in an attempt to catch her, but she rolled away, heart pounding as she maneuvered back toward the lights. "Stay away from her!" she shouted again, the promise blazing in her chest, but was it enough? The creature seemed unstoppable, fueled by a hunger they couldn't comprehend. A flash of light momentarily blinded Eleanor. She staggered back, thoughts swirling in the chaos. The glimmering light felt more inviting, beckoning her, whispering promises of safety. What if she could dive in, save Sarah and everyone else? Would it be worth it? But there was a danger clinging to the light as well, a sickening allure that raked at her sanity with sharp claws. She could sense that whatever was waiting within the brilliance was feeding on fear. "Sarah!" Eleanor roared, her voice raw, desperate. "Where are you?" The lure of the light intensified. Shadows crept closer, swirling menacingly. The creature, now furious, turned back toward her, jaws widening, ready to strike. Panicking, Eleanor felt trapped in her own swirling thoughts and horrors. She could no longer tell what was real, or what lay beyond that unforgiving light. In a flash, she could see it all, a choice standing before her, riddled with uncertainty. Should she dive into the light? Could she rescue Sarah? Or was that just an illusion wrapped in madness? The terrible creature lunged again, ready to strike a final blow. Time had run out, but the choice remained: would she leap into the unknown, or face the monster head-on? The air crackled with tension as the darkness closed in. Eleanor's breath hitched as she prepared to make her fateful decision. In that charged moment, she felt the weight of despair grow heavy around her shoulders. What would she choose? The shadows danced, whispering her name like a siren's call. And all she could do was stand there, waiting for the darkness to either consume her or grant her salvation. Would she find the truth waiting in the heart of that tantalizing light, or would she become another prisoner in its depths? Eleanor stood her ground, the weight of the axe heavy in her trembling hands, but her heart raced against the tide of shadows swirling around her. The creature bore down on her, its ghostly eyes locked on her with ferocity that felt alive. Behind it, the flickering lights pulsed like an aching heart, promising salvation yet whispering haunting terrors. Sarah! She cried again, the name a desperate offering into the void, a flicker of hope amidst mounting despair. The creature growled, deep and guttural, drawing closer. It seemed to sense her fear, feeding off the tremors that rippled through her body. Focus! She commanded herself, forcing her gaze back to the monster. If it was going to take anyone tonight, it wouldn't be her or Sarah. She might not understand the heart of the light, but one thing was clear, she'd fight until the end. With a surge of adrenaline, Eleanor swung the axe again, the blade slicing through air and hitting the floor with a loud thud. The creature hesitated, eyes darting between her and the ominous glow behind her. "Come on, you ugly thing!" she taunted, closing the distance between them, determination flaring bright in defiance against despair. The beast lunged, and with heart racing, Eleanor ducked to the side. It crashed into the wall behind her, sending splinters flying. She seized the moment, propelled by fierce instinct. "I want to let you take her." She pushed forward, the axe slick with dread pooling around them. The creature howled in fury, but Eleanor pressed on, rallying her resolve. She remembered the voices trapped in the lights, their silent screams ignited a fire within her. There was a chance, a flicker of hope that she could save Sarah, and all she had to do was act. "Eleanor, please." Sarah's voice echoed from within the unforgiving glow, tearing through the chaos surrounding her. In that moment, Eleanor knew she had to take that chance. She couldn't doubt the strength that lay within her. The lights flickered boldly, casting shadows that beckoned and warned all at once. Sarah was in there, and she would face whatever darkness waited for them both. "Get away from her!" Eleanor shouted, lunging at the creature once more. She swung the axe with all her might, the blade connecting with its shoulder. The creature screeched, all fire and rage, and Eleanor took a step back, bracing for the wrath of its retaliation, but in that fleeting moment, the lights pulsed again, brightening as if recognizing the battle unfolding. "Sarah!" Eleanor yelled, reaching toward the glow, hoping against hope that it would guide them through the abyss of despair. Then came a flash, a surge of energy connected the two, as if the very fabric of their lives had melded. Eleanor felt it within her, a truth that radiated not just from the lights but from the bond they shared. The weight of fear lifted, replaced by contagious courage. "Together!" Eleanor yelled, summoning her strength as she charged within the realm of shimmering orbs. The warmth filled her heart as she felt their invisible ties binding the past and future, chaos and hope entwined. "We can do this!" With renewed vigor, she cried, "We can't let it win." The creature, enraged, lashed out, but Eleanor and Sarah descended into the heart of the light together. The sensation was like plunging into warmth, where shadows could not touch them, and sorrow could not creep. In that moment, Eleanor felt the echoes of every classmate trapped, every anguished plea unfurl into a symphony of entreatment and courage. The pulse of light surged around them, filling the air with memories, laughter echoing through hallways, shared secrets under bleachers, glimpses of friendships past spilling into clarity. And among those memories, Sarah emerged beside her, her eyes bright with defiance, heart racing in sync with Eleanor's resolve. Together, they rose, voices united. "You will not take us," they declared, the whispers of the past becoming a chorus of strength. Around them, the shadows flickered, the creature letting out a wail, bursting with furious energy. The light rippled, illuminating the faces of those they'd been fighting to save. Rivulets of warmth cascaded through the auditorium as the creature began to falter, shrieking against the brilliance. It recoiled, shadows dissipating before their newfound strength, a testament to unity spinning in harmony against the darkness. "We're not cowards." Eleanor declared fiercely, feeling the light bolster them as they faced the approaching shadows. "We stand together." In a final surge, the light sprang forth, enveloping the creature, illuminating the hall in a radiant display. The monster screeched one last time before it cracked, the shadows dissolving like mist in dawn's embrace. As silence claimed the auditorium, the light flickered into a warm glow, revealing their classmates now free from the clutches of despair. They emerged lost souls returning, eyes wide with redemptive joy and shared relief. Eleanor grasped Sarah's hand tightly, laughing through tears. They had overcome. They had survived. In that moment, inside Jefferson High, light conquered all fears, breathing life back into long-lost friendships, and weaving a history of courage with every heartbeat. The school had survived the haunted night, and beneath the thick carpet of shadow, something new began to bloom, a resilience that would last long beyond their trials, reminding them that together, they could overcome anything. "Let us go home," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with warmth and love, and as they walked back through the glowing halls of Jefferson High, laughter bubbling in their chests, they knew this was only the beginning. Redemption and hope would awake anew, forging a path toward a future free from the specters of their past. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash the like button now, and let us feed that algorithm to spread these tales. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about what you think will happen next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.